Well, shoot, all this, talk about Ozzy, Dimebag, and all these guys that are now obviously are these legends and these icons are now, no longer with us.
Mhm.
As I was telling you, I was at the watching Exorder and the Suicidal, which is the old Suicidal Tendencies guys the other night. Um, and I was talking to my buddy and everything, and listen, Exorder is a fantastic band. And if they're out there, if you ever see, they're a great live band. I mean, Kyle Thomas, I mean, he could still, wow, man, that
He's
guy's
amazing.
voice, he's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, his voice is still like, I mean, hitting falsettos and hitting high notes like it's no big deal. Maybe because I think he took a break for a while in music. Maybe that helped. But
And he never
um,
toured. He never toured excessively,
true. Yep.
to tear his voice up.
Good point. And he's also just a great. He's out there. The way he talks to in between songs, he's talking. He's telling about the songs about, and not like, oh, when I wrote this song, no, he's just like, all right, this is for everyone who's working 9 to 5, and all this stuff that they used to, talk about just to get the crowd fired up and connect with the
Mhm.
fans. He totally can do. I mean, and it wasn't a huge crowd. Obviously it's a Tuesday night. I think there was probably about 80 to 100 people there, but I would say a good chunk of them left after Lewis Seidel because it got a little later, and I think most of the people were there to see them.
Okay.
But the 60 to 80 people that were there for Exorder, I mean, at the end of it, everyone was chanting for more, or whatever, and he definitely won over the crowd. I'd say even won him over, but he excited them to the point where it wasn't just okay Tuesday night I got to work. He fired them up.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I want to just say the guy is a phenomenal front man, and everybody, if they come into your town next door, I would highly suggest seeing them. But watching the Suicidal guys, that was a bit disappointing. For one, it sucked because look, out here in San Francisco, all these places shut down at 11 o'clock,
Oof.
and they got a bunch of songs that I wanted to see. I know they were on the set list. There were songs from their third album, which is like their best. How I Left Tomorrow. If I
Mhm.
Can't Smile Today. They were on the set list, a couple of songs, and they got cut because of the time constraints and same with Exorder. And so that, it was always freaking annoying that they're closing this stuff down at 11 o'clock. But when they were up there was sound issues that they were having. So the singer was out of key. Then there was, they were out of, and they couldn't hear the drums. They kept telling the guy, put up the sound. It was kind of like they were just in a jam room, man, and we were all just watching them too, to be honest with you.
Right.
It was a little disappointing. And just, just the overall vibe, I know it was a Tuesday night, and like I said, it was a decent crowd considering, I'll say that, but that's been going on. I mean, I remember going to shows like 10 plus years ago, and it was like that. A Wednesday night, you get 60 to 70 people, and these bands like, oh, that's pretty good considering it's the middle of the week. But, and just, watching this Hulu thing, watching Dime and watching Randy Rhoads with Ozzy and knowing that all these guys aren't here anymore, Eddie Van Halen passing away, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be this guy about, is metal dead and everything like that. But really, I mean, when you think about it, obviously we've known metal has been declining, not just really in terms of popularity, but just in terms of, its influence. And, I mean, it used to mean everything to us, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
couldn't, just the excitement of a new album coming out or a tour coming out and seeing these bands play together. And I mean, we lived for this stuff. That's what we worked for. That's what we saved our money for. Was we lived for it. We couldn't wait to hear
Sure.
news on a new record and a new maybe side project or something. So it just got me thinking. Really with the loss of these icons, especially Ozzy now, right? Because Ozzy was at the top, right?
Mhm.
Has the passings and also now retirements of guys, even a more of a mid-level guy like Ross the Boss getting ALS now.
Yeah.
He's done now. He can't play anymore. I really believe it's just dispirited the genre as a whole, where there's just not that same fire and buzz in the air when you go to a show and when you hear a new album. It's like almost sometimes they're just going through the motions.
Mhm.
I mean, listen, everyone's getting older too. I get it. Guys are on the road. I mean, like Exorder, they played a great show, but you could see one of the two of the guys, just kind of going through the motions,
Sure.
and I get it. It's a long tour when you're in your 50s. To get fired up every night. You're not doing drugs to keep your, you can't do it anymore. Your heart will explode. So you can't do that to kind of keep you fired up. Like for instance, just a great example, in Exorder, the guitarist they have there, the second guitarist, in the band. I forgot he was in them. It was Pat O'Brien, the guy who used to be in Cannibal
Cannibal
Corpse.
Corpse, right?
Right. So he was up there at one point, and my buddy was all pumped. He's like, oh, I think that's great, man. Like, look, he's up there and he's drinking beer. Most guys are up there drinking the energy drink or water or something. And he's up there old school, 60 years old, drinking beer. And then after the show, we were talking with him. And that's what my buddy's like, dude, I think that was great. You're up there drinking beer, like it used to be done and everything. Like, that's still, that's stuff I love to still see. And he was like, well, Motorhead did it forever. Why can't I? That's what he said. And I was like, all right, that's a good thing. I mean, you can see that's a guy who's definitely lives. I heard he sleeps with his guitar. He's like a Lemmy.
Sure.
He's a guy who's going to be like, I'm going to go out. If I die on stage, that's how I want to go out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing is we don't see that anymore. There's not that fire. I mean, Motorhead did do it till Lemmy died.
Mm-hmm.
He did. He was up there drinking and doing his thing. And it's like, it just feel like it's there, but they're going through the motions and we're just like hanging on. I just feel like it's a little dispiriting, man. I guess it's just maybe natural. I don't know. What's your take on that, man, of where things are right now?
I agree with you, but I don't think it's because the guys have died necessarily. And I'll tell you why. Admittedly, we've lost so many of our greats. We really have, whether it's the ones we've already named. You can name Ronnie James Dio or Peter Steele or, Lemmy. I mean, there's a lot more that you can name. We've lost a great amount of them. But I honestly think the reason there's not as much excitement anymore is because we just know too much about these guys. And we've kind of learned that a lot of these guys are dicks. And we just don't like them as much now that we know. I'll use an example of a band that me and you worship, not love, worship. Fear Factory.
Mm-hmm.
We worship that band. Now, the fact that we both are disgusted with that band right now has nothing to do with anybody that's passed away. It has to do with Dino Cazares being too online, saying too many things and not honoring his commitments to the fans and sharing the ugliness between him and Bert. And we know in the old days, we wouldn't have heard this. We would have heard nothing. We would have heard this guy left the band. Good luck in your future endeavors. Gone. Maybe a little chatter here and there in Hit Parader or something or, whatever. But that was it. And you didn't choose a side. Now, with every stupid band, there's some side they're forcing you to choose with their stupid social media and their outspoken thing, whether it's political side, whether it's band member versus band member side. Every band you can think of, there's now a side. You're siding with this guy or that guy. Are you a Death Angel fan or are you a Kerry King Band fan? Are you a Kerry King Band guy or are you a Slayer guy? Because Kerry said that he wouldn't play with these guys anymore, and now he's doing it. So now instead of just having the mystery of Slayer, you have this guy doesn't like this guy. He's only doing it for money and he wants mine. And I think if these guys would shut up and go back to being a little bit mysterious, you would have more. Part of the allure of going to these shows was seeing these guys because you didn't know you knew you loved what they did, but you didn't know nothing else. And when you would go see them live, you saw another side of them. You know what I mean? You saw that it wasn't just a band that sounded slick in the studio, but man, they brought these songs out and they played them faster, they played them raw, or they played that weird cover of that, I don't know, that yacht rock song or something that was rocked up to 1 million, whatever it would be. You saw a new side, and that was exciting. It was because it was unknown. Now we know everything. You know the set list. You go to Setlist FM and you can see the 16 songs that are going to get played. Or they say it. They just come right out and say, yeah, well, we're going to play the 10 that we have to, and then we're going to play this one and this one from the new record. All right, well, thanks for ruining it, bro. I think these guys have forgotten how to promote themselves because they've gotten too focused on telling everybody everything there is to know about them.
I think you're 1,000% right. Absolutely. You said the mystique is gone. Like you said, you're right. In the past, when they would come around live, like you said, you never saw them. The only
Yeah.
time you'd hear from them is maybe in a magazine article, and occasionally they might do a video interview, whether it's to any of that.
Yeah.
There wasn't that many outlets. You had MTV, or they had like Much Music or certain things in certain places. But yeah, it's and like you're right. Everything. I mean, you're right with the social media. I mean, 1,000%. Because you're right. Unfortunately, these guys, a lot of them, just can't keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
And so they've got to pine on things that are not related at all to music. It's especially the politics. I mean, we
Mhm.
know once you come out, and I understand it's like, I think what's happened with social media is, see, I used to think musicians wanted to be like hidden away.
Yeah.
I used to think that they wanted to just do their interviews, like, because when you'd see them like in person, it was like some guys were great, like the Dimebags and stuff, but some guys were like, I'm not really a people person type. And, they were reluctantly kind of engaged with their fans. But I never realized the self-importance that a lot of them felt on other issues outside of music that they wanted to
Yeah.
feel like they wanted to be involved in and opine on. And I think that is completely 1,000% has hurt you're right, the overall vibe. Like just an example, like with Kyle Thomas, the one thing I did like what he did at one point, there's a song called Divide and Conquer that was off their last album, great song. And he was speaking what's about it. He's like, look, I hate politics, I hate religion. All it does is divide. All they're doing, it was a very, again, a unifying thing with,
Mhm.
look, who cares what side you're on, whatever. Like, this is what's causing all this crap about people being divisive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's so many narcissists. We know a lot of musicians are self-centered, they're narcissistic, but this is really, with social media, it's definitely brought out the ugly side of their
Sure.
personalities. Where you're right, before, when they would talk about things, we didn't really know much about them, the person, and we don't really care. We just
Mhm.
wanted to be like, you're a great musician and entertain us, and we'll pay you. And I mean, your lyrics, it was all spoken through the music.
Right.
And you could, through the lyrics, they would be able to get their points across. And a lot of times they wouldn't even want to explain what it was, because I might take those lyrics to mean something, you might take it a different way, and we
Right.
would, of course, use it. And that's what brought it all together. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It was the mystique of, oh, do those lyrics really
Yeah.
mean that? Well, I don't care if they do. They mean that to me, and that's all that matters.
Mhm.
But now when you got guys going, no, that song didn't mean that. It was about this. And you're just, and these guys just, unfortunately, because they have that quote unquote platform, I hate when they use this thing. Well, I'm going to use my platform. I mean,
Yeah.
we see it with sports, we see it in all entertainment now.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it really isn't just even music, right? It's across the board with all
It's
entertainment.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything. And it's definitely drives down the spirit of when you go to these shows, because you're like, oh, you see someone with a whatever, American flag on. Is this guy a MAGA guy? You see someone with something
Mhm.
else on. Is he anti this? Or
Yeah.
it's crap. It is. You're totally right. I mean, you're right. Maybe it isn't so much the past. I think it stinks that those the Ozzies and stuff are gone, because
Terrible.
never
I hate it.
because when people would go see them, I think the last thing anyone's thinking about is politics, because Ozzy didn't speak politics
Mhm.
or other stuff. Neither did Dime. None of these guys did. And now when you see other guys, past that maybe have been vocal, you got that other side go, yeah, well, it
Yeah.
stinks he's dead, but you know what? He was he was for this and that anyway, so I don't really feel so bad. And it's just,
Yeah.
it just sucks, man, because it's the
It
one thing
does.
that should be unifying, and it's not.
No, it's not. And I mean, I do hold the bands accountable for this, though.
Wait,
It's on them.
I
And
agree.
but there's other things in it too that I think we overlook, that I think
Mhm,
are really detrimental. Like I'll just give you one example.
mhm.
When you were a kid, 15, 16, 18, old enough to start going to shows, did you ever hang out by the back door or by the bus or something for just to get a handshake or an autograph or whatever?
1,000%.
Okay. Now they've monetized that.
Yeah,
So
well, that too. That's true.
that has taken all the, you remember how, dude, I was telling David Ellefson this. I hate to sound like Eddie Trunk here. I was telling David Ellefson, but I told him this. First time I met David Ellefson was
Mm,
at his bus at the Cleveland Agora on the Peace Sells tour, maybe. It was way early in the Megadeth run. And I stood outside for 2 hours after the show, and they came out, and they didn't even give me an autograph. I got a fist bump from David Ellefson. I still remember this at 57. I was like 14. You know, that was so special to me. I can't even explain it because it was one of my favorite bands, and he just acknowledged me after ripping my face off show-wise. Then he acknowledged me as a fan. Fast forward to today, all you got to do is come up with an X amount of money, and you can meet Dave Mustaine, or you can meet Blackie Lawless, or you can meet whatever band. And that sucks because there's nothing special about, dude, that's like saying, you know what the most special meal I ever had was? McDonald's, because I could afford it. You know, that sucks. You know,
it does.
All mystique is gone. All of it. It's not just them spewing. It's also them taking what was special from us, it's now just a total cash grab. And maybe everybody doesn't feel that way about it, but every time I will never pay for a meet and greet. Never.
No, never.
Because you know what? I'm not going to cash grab you that way. I did pay for the meet and greets when I bought my fucking ticket or the 15 albums that I bought in the past.
Yeah.
I've earned the right to say, hello, thank you for entertaining me all these years. I shouldn't have to take a second mortgage on my house to meet Dave Mustaine. That's just ridiculous.
I agree, but but I will say, like, look, I can understand in a certain respect, certain level of musicians that do that. Obviously, if it's Kiss, the guys from Kiss, or the ones that really started to do it, I could kind of understand that because they are so mega huge. Where it's like, okay, they can't go out there and just meet every fan, right? But what's killing me is their bands like one of my favorite bands, Biohazard, that's doing that.
Yeah,
come on,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Biohazard doing a meet and greet. I got to pay to get a picture taken with Billy from Biohazard or Evan. I mean, these guys aren't. And listen, I understand they've got to find ways to generate money to keep things going. I get it. They got to go up there now and like the other night, Kyle Thomas is like, look, even if you just at the end, he was like, if you could just even buy a sticker, we just need this to. I totally get it. This thing is kind of on life support, but like you said, and and I know a lot of them probably feel bad about even asking, what I mean? But they're kind of signaling like, look, if we don't even just get a little, because no one's buying our records and we don't get paid enough via the, just the playing the show, we've got to sell merch in order to really keep this thing going. I mean, you hear it all the time from bands, and I completely get it. I'm not saying like, oh, just shut up and deal with it. No, because you can't go on the road and lose money and expect to keep going. I completely understand that. I think there's a certain way you can do it.
Yes and no. Because if you want to do that, I'll use the Dave Mustaine example because I know that one is like $500 or some crazy number.
That's nuts.
Which is dumb. I'd be willing to pay it if there was something in it for me. I mean, if I'm going to get 5 minutes of a conversation, one-on-one, me and him, now we're talking about something.
Sure. Yeah.
Now they want us to give them money to do the exact same shit they've been doing forever. Now they just want a check for it. That's where I have the problem. It's Motley Crue. I met Motley Crue 15 different times over the years at shows. And now it's like $1,000 for this. And, and you might get to meet these members and you might not. And you pay extra for this member versus that. And it's like, what is this? Come out, shake the hand. You already jacked me for a stadium ticket to see your band that doesn't play 1/10 as good as it used to. Just sign my fucking record and stop it. I gave you the money. I've given you the money. I'll continue to give you the money if I don't feel ripped off. But I think a lot of people, and I think this goes back to why people don't go anymore because they feel ripped off. $250 minimum to see any band of merit. $250 minimum for bands that you and I both saw for 20 or less for decades. decades.
Yep. Mhm.
They have ruined. They've shown their ass to where you don't like them as much. And then when they do the thing that you do like them for, it's only if you act like an ATM machine for them.
Yeah, it's not genuine. I know it's not, spur of the moment I'm seeing them, and yeah, it's I know, man. And again, and I know this is like something that's new, we've known this has been
Mhm.
going on for a little bit, but it does contribute to, like you said, this sort of dispiriting of what this was all about and meant
Yeah.
to, was about, from the get-go. And like I said, I really try to put myself in their shoes. I know that's the thing is we don't really get to see. I mean, listen, I'm sorry, but yeah, a band like Megadeth, I don't think is hurting like a band like say Exorder or something, where
Yeah.
they're basically still in a maybe a bigger van or whatever, and they're like definitely have to penny pinch it throughout their the tours and stuff. I completely get it, especially here in the States. I understand that this stuff just isn't as, and of course, when we get the whole, the Live Nation stuff, and we've talked about that ad nauseum about how that's just destroyed everything too. It
Mhm.
shows. It's just, you'd think, some of these guys would find a different way though, and I understand management's going to be, tell them like, look, it's either this, this way or the highway type of thing. You got to do it this way because you got to pay, the management. You got to pay there's so many mouths you got to feed with
Mhm.
any kind of income you're generating through touring and record sales and so forth. I just feel like there's got to be somewhat of a better way. Like you said, the meet and greets are bad. Because let's be honest, everyone knows if you're charging too, they're not sitting there genuinely going, "Hey, they want to meet you." If you're doing it for free and they're talking to you like just a
Yeah.
regular like dude, you're like, "Wow, that was so that's such a great experience. I'll never forget that." When you pay for a meet and greet, it's not experience you're gonna not forget about because you paid for it. It's like
Mhm.
it's disingenuous. They feel like they have to be with you and talk to you because you paid the money.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that is unfortunate. I mean, I know there's people look that are fine with it. They're still super fans that just want to have all that,
And
and to
that's
them that means
great.
that. That's great, but you're right. Regular people like us, I think regular guys who are fans of stuff, but aren't really the super fans that have all the collectibles and have all the the stuff and every anthology and every demo and everything like that of a band. It's like we just want to buy your album, pay for the show. And if I run into you, just say, "Hey, man," shake your hand and say, "Great show," blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
give a fist bump. And that's it. And if that's costing you money to go do or to get,
Mhm.
yeah, there's more, I think, of us than there are people that want to pay for that. And it does take away from the just, like you said, the overall mystique of it.
Yeah.
It's anything that, like you said, anything that revolves around money that you're doing for money is going to take away from the spirit of it. There's just no doubt.
Yep. Yeah.
You
It's
know,
sad state of affairs these days.
it is, man. And again, I don't want to keep beating it dead. It's still alive, but it's really on life support. It's not even just from the musicians you feel it from. You could feel it when you're in these venues.
Mhm.
I just don't. When I used to go to see shows, it was like I'd get in there and right away I'd feel this, like this. This is where I belong. I'm home. Let me get a
Yeah.
beer. Let me sit and shoot shit about music with my friend, and maybe meet a couple other fans that were
Well,
there. And we're
that
talking
was
about,
that was the point I wanted to make too. When you
Mhm.
went to at least for metal shows, I don't know about every other kind of show, but I know for metal shows, you could go by yourself. It didn't even
Uh-huh.
matter. You go by
Yeah.
yourself, and within 5 minutes, you're talking to this guy over here. Why? Because he's got that tour shirt from 3 tours ago that you were at. And you'd be like,
Uh-huh.
dude, did you really see Persistence of Time, the Anthrax tour? Oh, yeah, it was great. Remember that clock on this? Next thing you know,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
are talking until the band starts, and you'll never meet this guy before, and you never meet him again. But for that moment, you are all a family. You are
Mhm.
all, it was the experience. Now it's like there's no vibe. There's no, you know, there's a lot of people that are there for status.
Yeah. No, I know. And like, and the thing is like, even I used to, something that was better back in the day was when the show's over, like you said, okay, you go to the merch table, you hang out for, dude, I don't know how it is in Cleveland but I know there's other places are doing this. It's like, they're just trying to kick you out as soon as as soon as
Mhm.
they're done. It's like, get out of here. So there's no even like, it was always about that thing afterwards, right? You'd either go to a
Yeah.
bar afterwards, or the bands would go to a bar afterwards, or they'd hang out in the venue. They'd still keep the venue open, and that's where you can meet them. And they're just like, basically, okay, buy your shirt. And I mean, they were like pushing us out the other day. It was insane.
Yeah,
And it's not the
nuts.
first time. It's just, and it sucks. I mean, this is the whole point, was to kind of hang out and bond over this, where now it's just, and you said it's just a financial transaction now,
Mhm.
between you're the customer, I'm providing the product and the service here, whatever it is, and buy for me. Thanks. See you next time. I mean, it's like going to get a freaking, value meal at a freaking fast food restaurant now,
Yeah.
in and out type of thing. You just in and out,
Mhm.
boom, you're
And
gone. And
the bands that don't act like that are the ones that will gain some traction. Like, I'll use an
agreed.
exact example.
Mhm.
The first time I saw Dirty Honey was
Mhm.
with Slash. It was Dirty Honey and
Mhm.
Slash.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we came out because I loved Dirty Honey. My friends that were with me had never even heard of them. I
Mhm.
happened to hear of them only because I was interviewing Mark like 2 days later. So that's
Okay.
the only reason I knew anything about them. That was when they were brand new. And so after they played, they right at the end of their set, they said, "Hey, we'll meet anybody who wants to come and get a t-shirt or whatever. We'll meet you back at the booth." So me and my girl and my friend Stephanie and John, we went back in between.
Mhm.
Nobody else went back. We hung out with the band probably until a quarter of Slash's set was over,
Oh,
because
wow.
they didn't come out and say, "Here's your shirt, here's the square, slide your card." They hung out with us. They chatted with us. What are you guys into? What are what is there to do around here? Is there somewhere we can go to get a sandwich? Just
Mhm.
bullshitting like regular people. And you know what?
Mhm.
As dumb as that sounds, and I've met how many musicians at this point? Thousands and thousands. They're at the top of my list because they were real. They weren't plastic, fake bullshit that we get nonstop. They were a real band. They act like a real band. And that's rare now.
Well, do you think it's also because they were newer and, trying to build up that fan base? Is
I
it
don't
more
think that, because they still do it.
like, okay,
Mhm,
well, that's great. I love hearing that. Yeah, and I remember we interviewed Mark, and he was
mhm.
super cool, and I
Mark's
could see that.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and that's what is going to keep, if you are a newer band, that's what's going to keep people coming back
Mhm.
and seeing you and buying your stuff, is just you treat them like a regular human. And that's the thing, is because there is, in the past, there was this difference, right? You had the musician that was like here, and you're the fan over here. You felt kind of like, oh, looking up at them type of thing.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the older you get too, it's just like, oh, listen, you're just another person. You have a
Mhm.
talent that you're really good at, and I'm supporting it. But we're all grown adults. It's not like we're youngsters, and there's
Yeah.
this ego sort of, social barrier type of thing, where it's like, well, I can't get up to there. I'm just like in awe of you type of thing. No, everyone's, no one's starstruck anyone. I think a lot of that too has to do with social media again too, because
Yeah.
there's no mistakes. So we know everything about them already. And, some things we might not like. And we're just like, oh, hey, Dylan. And, maybe we don't want to talk to them anymore because they've mouthed off too much on social media, where
Right.
before we just couldn't wait to talk to them. But that is good. And is how, yeah, as a band, you're going to continue to bring people back, out to see
Mhm.
you, is if you just do that. And yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to, beat this to death, but it's, again, it's like, I just feel between the icons dying, the way that, like you mentioned, the social media, just the mystique being gone, it's what's completely lost. That flame is sort of like really dim right now.
Mhm.
The torch is dim. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
not, and where's the torch going to be passed to? There's nothing replenishing this.
No.
I don't, like I said, I don't want to. It's a whole topic for another day. But there, once these guys go, we had the '70s guys, the '80s, and the '90s. Once that's gone, the 2000s, like we said. I mean, if you really think about with Dimebag's passing, what's happened since Pantera's been gone? What's been the last big metal band post them? There is none.
No,
There's
not
none
really.
that's on that level. I mean, you had that new wave American heavy metal stuff with Chimera and God Forbid and Shadows Fall. And look, those bands are still kind of going. I see God Forbid and Shadows Fall back. Shadows Falls, I think, got another new album in the can, but they never
Mhm.
got to that level.
Yeah.
They were never that inspiring. It was just that that's when, Lamb of God, again, too much politics, with those guys. And it's like, it's not the same. You know what I mean? There's never we have no one to replace those guys once they're gone, and they're all starting to go away. And it's it's like, and there's nothing coming from the underground, because the attitude, again, going back to watching the series, the Hulu series, Into the Void, it was dangerous. It was pushing boundaries. It's the complete opposite now.
Yeah.
So the last 20 years, these bands are not pushing any boundaries. They're in with the establishment and stuff. They're agreeing with them. They're agreeing with what they're reading or seeing on the mainstream news and what they're seeing in mainstream music. Yeah. And it's like, how can you? So then you don't have that culture and that mindset, and just that, like you said, it's. I hate to say it, but
edgeless. It's edgeless.
Yeah, there's no edge. There's none. Even the music's not edgy. It's the same rehash stuff that we've heard for the last 20. Yeah. I mean, metalcore, when metalcore came out, that's still the big music with these Knock Looses and Spirit Box, the ones that are getting, nominated for Grammys. There's nothing pushing boundaries. There's no edginess. No. It's all inclusive stuff now. I hate to say it. You have to have a chick, a female singer, a female, this. You have to have someone who is a different culture, from a different, race or background. Sure. If you don't, you're not going to get recognized anymore. It's not based off merit anymore. There's no merit. Zero.
Yeah.
So
and some of us don't care. Well, some of us don't. We just don't care. I'm not going to support Ginger because she's a singer, because she's a female. No. Absolutely. If she's great, I'll support it.
But it's all about the music.
She's great. I do think she's great, and I will support them. But but that's the point. Is if Ginger had a male singer, we would have never heard of them.
No, they'd just be another metalcore band. And like I said, I agree. I think they are a very good band. I mean, they're really a good band, musically and vocally. I agree. But that's all we're seeing now. Even with the female vocalists, all we're seeing is you've got to now growl along with it. Why? Why can't you just sing like Christina, Scabbia from Lacuna Coil? Why can't you just sing with a beautiful voice? Why do you have to scream in there? You don't have to. I mean, that's like part of like a requirement now for female vocalists. Why? Even the male vocalists and male have to do that. Why can't they just sing, classic vocals, melodic vocals like Rob Halford? I mean, I don't even hear any newer bands trying to sound like Rob Halford or Judas Priest. That's the thing too.
That day is done.
No, they're not even trying to sound like Pantera. So it's not even influenced by that. They're trying to sound like the same bands from 20 years ago. It's
I don't want to be old. God, that's what they're trying to sound like.
That's all it is. They're trying to sound like that era, and it's going to die if that's what it is. So hopefully with this new Gen A, Z, whatever coming up, they are going to be maybe like, what, this stuff is. We need to go back to the basics, and But until then, we're living with something that's definitely hanging on by a thread, man. There's no doubt.
Agree.
No doubt. All right.